It was 1978, a year only known as the year 2 years before 1980, and some other stuff. But more importantly, it was the year Ward Christensen and Randy Seuss decided to create the computerized bulletin board system, after a blizzard in Chicago kept them from going to work. 4 weeks later, and they had created the first public dial-up CBBS. Now all the members of the Chicago Area Computer Hobbyist Exchange, or CASH for short, could post things like "Need a ride?" and an easy place to access.
Oh, hey Ted. You know, I've been getting a lot of complaints on the CBBS. I know you've been sad since Deborah left you, but you can't be posting your singles ads on the CBBS, okay? Look, Ted, we're the Chicago Area Computer Hobbyist Exchange. You know, the only things that get hot around here are the soldering irons. Get yourself together. And I'll see you next Monday, okay? Alright.
Flashback, but also kind of forward. It's 1984. You're smack dab in the middle of a digital revolution. You cram your landline phone receiver into an acoustic coupler to jack into the World Wide Web with TEDNet, the local BBS ran by the computer enthusiasts down the street. You check out the forum, see if you have any mail, play a little game, and even consider uploading a file. You're about to post a quick "Van Halen rules" in the forums, but before you do, Big Brother Ted sends a chat saying, "I'm watching you." And don't stay on too long, because you know, there's other people that want to use it too. You know, it's a dial-up and I only got one phone line. But also, "I'm watching you." This was the era of BBSs, which lasted from about 1980 to 1994, until the internet crushed it. Some might call the BBS era the early internet, but really it was much different. BBS hosts are not connected like the internet is now. Each BBS was like its own little social club, its own little Galapagos Islands terraformed by the hands of a typically well-meaning computer enthusiast. It was truly a magical time. I mean, I suppose. I didn't actually experience it, but today we will right that BBS deficiency with a little fun and some ancient Japanese BBSs. You see, because just like in the West, the BBS scene was starting to kick off.
役に立つ情報も一足違いだったり見逃してしまったりなんてことはよくありますよね。そこでパソコン通信、こんな情報が欲しいと呼びかけるといろんなところから返事が来て、ほら今パソコンで日本中の情報がつながるぞ、広がるぞ。 NEC のパソコン NEC 夏の C&C 祭り好評開催中。
Since individual BBS operators could only really have one line for people to connect with, there would eventually be paid services that popped up that could handle more users at once. Pre-internet online services were started around 1985 to 1987 or so, and were called Pasokon Tsushin, or as the computer club kids would call it, Pasotsu. CompuServe, the American pre-internet service provider, entered the Japanese market in 1986 through a partnership with Fujitsu Limited to create a new company called Nifty Corporation. It would later launch NiftyServe in 1987. NiftyServe was primarily targeted at the Japanese market, with most of its content and services tailored to the Japanese user. However, through this partnership, they were able to provide some level of international connectivity. This would include emails, forums, and global news provided by CompuServe. While not quite to the level of the internet we know now, this allowed access to information in other countries outside of Japan, albeit in a limited capacity. NiftyServe was so popular at the time that in 2011, Nifty would recreate the experience, but it was only available for about a year. Another Pasokon Tsushin service provider was ASCII.net, the same ASCII of MSX computer fame. The Japanese computer company Nippon Electrical Corporation, or NEC, was involved as well. They created their own BBS service called Personal Computer Value-Added Network, or PC-VAN for short. And as we all know, the inside of a van is the best place to meet interesting people.
Hey gamer, come on inside. We got Doritos and all the high C you could drink.
Double kill!
Just come on in. Why aren't you coming in? Just come on in. You don't want to come in? You don't want to come in, huh?
Really, it seemed like every major company had their go at it. Even Fuji Television had FFnet, or Fuji Television FutureNet. Who knows, maybe even a young Arino Kacho would grace the boards of his future employer. ASCIINet, NiftyServe, and PCVan were the main networks at the time. They had more functionality and services at a cost, but there were still plenty of smaller single-operator BBS out there. Though truly at this point, large or small, most BBS were far more than a bulletin board system. But what was it like to go through all these nets? Did it leave you digging through the deepest, darkest pits of someone's dirty little BBS? Or was it a much brighter foray? Well, I found a manga essay book written by Mitsuru Sugaya called Jisen, Pasokon Tsushin, or Practical Combat, Personal Computer Communication. It gives us a little better understanding. In it, he talks about his experiences with Pasokon Tsushin culture at the time. This guy looks like he's been through some stuff, and not all of them came back. And naturally, when a man grins that hard at you, you just can't help but read his book. What I found interesting is the time capsule qualities of this book. I gotta be honest, I never heard of Pasokon Tsushin or BBSs until I stumbled upon it while researching for a separate video, so I have no experience with it. But I feel like I have a better understanding of what it is after reading this. I didn't realize how advanced these systems were. Apparently through the source, you could send emails, look at bulletin boards, have real-time chat conferences with up to 100 people on CompuServe, buy goods online, make travel arrangements, buy stocks, and even check the news. Sugaya goes through all kinds of various aspects of BBS, from his struggles trying to post and chat in American SIGs, or special interest groups, which were basically a Reddit page or a Discord server dedicated to a single topic, to a common money scam at the time. It's interesting to see that even on old school online services, people were still dealing with money scams. It's the $500 million official Elon Musk event, WVW, free coins, me of the year. I thought that this is not real and some kind of joke. After I visited and tried it, received 195 BTC. From now I know this is definitely real. He also covers the frustration of trying to get connected to a network, which apparently was a pretty common issue at the time. Heck, you could even play games online through the domestic BBS. I don't know what kind of fun they were, but I can imagine the social aspect of them was the most thrilling part. One particular :D moment was him going on a plane with his computer and audio coupler, only for security to assume it's a bomb. Things were so silly back then. Now we put our computers in bins and our bombs in our shoes. Boom. If you had a handheld computer, aka a laptop, you could actually access these services on the go from a payphone. I don't know how common this was or if it's still possible, but I did find a surprising number of photos online dating back to 2011. Man, so many missed opportunities to stand by a public phone with sunglasses on and say, "I'm jacking in." Now we live in a world where, unfortunately, I have to keep my jacking in at home. After a little research while editing this, I found out you can still connect to the internet in 2022. There's a sense of wonder in his writing and optimism for what the future could be with this new technology, and how it could bring people who have never seen or heard each other together, as if they were old pals. His time using the Pasokon Tsushin even led to a real-life meetup of the people of his group. Reading this book gives me a sense of exploration and even community. It's kind of refreshing to see a pre-internet time with so much hope. Little did he know we'd end up with an online world full of things like this.
He used a bargain basement nail file to smooth out her teeth.
But all these emails, e-chats, and e-boards weren't e-cheap. In order to connect to foreign BBS services, one would have to use Venus P, or Valuable and Efficient Network Utility Service Packet Exchange, a popular BBS software at the time that was required to access American services like Delphi or the Source. Just by using Venus P, you were charged a fee that was based on the amount of time you spent online, as well as being charged for sending characters. So about 40 yen per minute, and 2.4 yen per about 64 characters sent according to Sugaya. On top of that, in order to use said foreign services like CompuServe, the Source, or Delphi, you were charged separately per use. I'm not sure how much each of them charged, but in the book he gives an example of how much this would all add up to be. For about an hour of online time, it would be from 5 to 6,000 yen, so about 53 bucks in today's dollars. Wow!
With that kind of money, I could have filled my house with ding-dongs. I'd have ding-dongs out the wazoo. It'd all be legal.
As a way of trying to combat this, people would download the messages from the board onto a floppy disk, hang up, print out all the messages, carefully reply to each of them using a word processor, save them to a floppy disk, reconnect, and then upload the messages to the board. That sounds pretty awful, right? But hear me out. Just imagine the satisfaction you get from ripping off 50 feet of those perforated side strips. ASCIInet, according to the author, did not charge you a network usage fee at the time, but rather you just had to pay your phone bill like you normally would. I'm not sure how much a normal phone plan would charge, but I did find an example online of someone who used it, but even that isn't for certain. They say it was about 10 yen for 3 minutes for local city calls, and 180 yen for 3 minutes outside the prefecture. Needless to say, it wasn't the cheapest hobby at the time, and this is one of the reasons some people would hit up the small local BBSs instead. A few of the larger services would stick around for a surprisingly long period. ASCIInet would be around till 1997, Nifty would start their Nifty Serve service in 1987, and it would close down along with CompuServe in 2006. Which brings us to草の根BBS, or Grassroots BBS. As it sounds like, these are local level ones, and at the height of the boom it's believed there are around 2,400 hosts in Japan in 1994. After the boom and bust of the Pasokon Sushin BBSs in Japan, a very small amount of hobbyists still continue the BBS lifestyle. Much like a boomer driving around a classic car to relive their youth, these guys keep the warm hum of their desktop machines running to bask in the glory days of their youth. I wanted to take a spin myself, so I downloaded tera and booted up a VM of Windows 7, the Japanese version. I found a list of a few of the supposedly last surviving ones, but only had a few that are actually still running, or at least that I could connect to. ParsleyNet, Wapiko, Midnight Driving, Hanzo BBS, VirusNet, and Seiwanet are the few I tried. It's really kind of crazy considering there used to be a BBS Denwacho full of them back in the day. Heck, I even found footage of the 1989 National草の根BBS Conference. It looks like a lot of people are having some fun. Back then it was the cutting edge of social media technology. But nowadays it feels like kind of going to a convention about Discord to tell everyone your favorite Discord channels.
Which if you were there, I'm sure you'd be telling everybody about this channel's Discord, which you can join. If you're looking for some fun, then come on in. We got oodles of it. There's so much going on that nothing's happening. It's like an inverse. Think about it.
Some highlights from the conference are a gaggle of nerdy boys in tight-fitting acid-wash jeans, a game of bingo, far too much zooming in on people, especially the ladies. Heck, even Hudson Soft was there with their B team. Hudson Soft had a BBS called B-Term, CreamyNet 1, CreamyNet 2, and CreamyNet 3. And like any good convention, you had the cool guys, the bunny ear boys, an unfortunate victim of white pants syndrome, and a mild threat of destruction. Some of the BBS listed here are pretty priceless too. You got Yasnet, Catnet, Jetstream Club, Galobe Fishnet, and a couple proto-Tinders like Kissnet and GF and BFnet, and I'm a Lonely Virgin, Won't Somebody Love Me Net. But enough of unsettling Zooms and thirsty BBS boys. It's time to dive into this ancient civilization and mingle with the locals. I tried out ParsleyNet, Wapiko, Midnight Driving, Hanzo BBS, VirusNet, and Seiwanet. The first three were duds to me. I'm not sure what I did wrong, but I couldn't access them with tera. Out of the last three, Seiwanet was by far the best experience. I think mainly because I used the Swifty Web SS client to access it. It had nice colors and was by far the easiest to follow. All the other ones felt frustrating and heck, intimidating. It made me appreciate what people are willing to deal with when using something like this. Though I believe using Telenet now makes it a lot easier than in the 80s and 90s, with their dial-up modems and their acoustic couplers. I was impressed with how many posts Seiwanet had, and from the start date. They got posts from 1996 up to this month in 2023. I'm not going to say I understood everything that was being talked about, but from what I saw it was like mainly three things. Everyday stuff, BBS related stuff, and just people stopping in to say hi, and that it was their first time doing it. I spent like probably 2 hours cruising through these BBSs, and even now I can still see a bit of appeal of it. The more you stay there reading, the more you kind of get invested on what's going on. But it's really kind of a weird feeling for me, because for one, the interface is a lot and kind of hard to follow. I mean, you get used to it, but it's still like I have to carefully consider every input I make. It's also kind of creepy just reading other people's messages and having no part in the conversation in what overall feels like a very intimate setting. Maybe even like reading people's DMs. It's like walking into a mom and pop shop, going behind the cash register, opening it up, counting the money, looking the owner straight in the eye, and then disappearing in a poof of smoke. I spent the most time on Seiwanet, and after reading some posts, I knew what I had to do. Now I've left a piece of history and made this about me. I truly am a good person.
And that's the end of my journey with the BBS. If you're looking for a more in-depth view of the microcosms of the BBS, then I would suggest a great 5-hour documentary called BBS, the documentary. It's kind of interesting to see how people interacted with and used the BBS at the time. And you even see the future birth or blossom of a Reddit moderator or even a troll. Oh, also there's a great video by fozztexx. I know, I'll put a link in the description, but he actually shows it running on real hardware. I don't know, maybe you watch that, you set one up for you and your family, and then you guys are just BBSing all the time. It's 2023. Stranger things have happened. At any rate, thanks for watching. I'm Mike Krow, and I'll see you later.